the American frontier was a land of both promise and peril. In the mid-1800s, wagon trains carried emigrants westward in search of new opportunities. Travellers faced harsh landscapes, unpredictable weather, and the ever-present threat of violence. What you're about to hear is a first-hand account from Captain A.S. Wood, a man who travelled west in 1853 with a wagon train heading to California. During his journey, he witnessed one of the most gruesome and horrifying acts of frontier justice ever recorded. A man skinned alive by vengeful Indian warriors after committing a senseless murder. Captain A.S. Wood describes the events as follows.
Back in 1853, we departed from northern Arkansas with a group of immigrants. Our wagon train was well equipped with horses and weapons for protection against wild animals and potential attacks from hostile Indians. Our destination was California. When the immigrants organized, I was living at Huntsville in Madison County, where I joined one of the parties known as Captain Boyd's Train. A man of the name of John Mankins, formerly of Marion County, joined the other party. He was a large man and was known to be quite overbearing and disagreeable. When he left Marion County to join the immigrants, he was living in the Flippin' Barrens between Yellville and White River. The two wagon trains traveled together for a time, but eventually separated, often being as much as 10 miles apart. Before reaching the frontier, Mankins boasted that he would shoot the first Native American he saw, regardless of whether it was a man, woman, or child. Mankins repeated these threats so frequently that the rest of the party grew alarmed, urging him not to do so for fear the entire party would be massacred. Being a stubborn and fellow, he paid no attention to their advice. Upon arriving at an Indian reservation, they passed an encampment where only a few women and children remained, the warriors being away on a hunt. This gave the man an opportunity to carry his threats into execution, and he willfully murdered a Native American woman by shooting her. The other immigrants were appalled by this cold-blooded and senseless act. The tribe would surely avenge the woman's death. Each hour of their journey, the travelers expected an attack, yet they remained unmolested until the 4th day after the killing. Then, the immigrants spotted a band of 100 Indians, all mounted on ponies and riding in pursuit. Each warrior was adorned in full war paint. The immigrants had set up camp about 10 miles from our train when the Indians charged in without hesitation, swiftly surrounding the camp. Without stopping to parley, they demanded that the murderer be surrendered, threatening to kill and scalp everyone in the group, including women and children. The white men were well armed and had prepared for defense in case of an attack. However, when faced with the warriors' demands, the leaders quickly realized they were too few in number to resist the enraged Indians, even if they had wished to. Mankins had committed such a heinous murder that the immigrants felt no sympathy for him and immediately handed him over. The fury of the Indian warriors reached its peak as they informed the white men that they would inflict one of the most excruciating tortures known upon the murderer. Realizing he was doomed to a horrific fate, the trembling wretch pleaded and begged the immigrants to save him from the vengeance of the warriors. But his cries were in vain. He had brought this upon himself, and he would have to suffer the punishment that satisfied the warriors' thirst for justice. The Indians took a 60-foot stake rope made from buffalo rawhide from one of their ponies and tightly bound the man, securing him hand and foot to the hind wheel of a wagon. Wasting little time on preliminaries, they inspected their knives to ensure their edges were razor sharp. They slowly stripped the skin from his entire body, not in small bits or strips, but in whole sections. The horrific torture took place in full view of the white men. Mankins struggled and screamed in agony. His suffering was terrible and miserable. He begged, prayed, and cursed, but his pleas went unanswered. The gruesome work continued. the unbearable torment unrelenting. Having brutally murdered a defenseless Indian woman, he now faced the tribe's ultimate punishment, the most excruciating torture they could conceive. The exultant Indians completed their gruesome and agonizing task, letting out a yell of satisfaction. Though their victim was still alive, he had gradually slipped into unconsciousness. They unbound him, and his bleeding, mutilated body collapsed to the ground, where it continued to writhe for nearly an hour before death finally ended his suffering. The Indians remained until they were certain he was dead. Only then did they mount their ponies and with triumphant war whoops depart, taking his flayed skin with them. Once the warriors had disappeared from sight, the emigrants dug a grave at the spot where his lifeless body lay, giving him as proper a burial as circumstances allowed. They marked the grave as best they could before departing an hour later, leaving behind the fresh mound of earth for the coyotes to howl over, the buffalo to trample, and the passing Indians to sneer at.